This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon all. I hope you can see my screen. Can you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you don't have class in the afternoon, no? Like after my class, do you have any class?
No, ma'am.
So in the last class, we had discussed till type T types of ADR reactions. So we saw what is the definition for ADR, what is the difference between ADR and ADEs. Then we saw what are the what are the different factors that can lead to ADRs. I mean, there will be certain predisposition factor. It is not mandatory that every people will be experiencing with ADRs, but there are again certain predisposing factor that will be resulting in ADRs. And then after which we have seen certain classifications of ADR. We saw type A, B, C, and D type of ADRs. And now we'll move on to type E. So type E is end of treatment reactions. So this one is like usually occur on withdrawal, especially when drug is stopped abruptly. Okay, so what happens is certain drugs, certain high priority drugs, you cannot stop the drug all of a sudden. You will have to slowly taper the dose and then only you can stop the drug. Okay, or else what happens is there will be withdrawal problems. Now, someone who is taking anti-epileptic drugs. Okay, let's say phenytoin. So phenytoin, it is actually a really good drug as an anti-epileptic drug. It is actually really good. There is a very good seizure control and all. But one biggest problem with phenytoin is associated with plenty of ADRs. Okay, so sometimes what happens is, especially in patients who take phenytoin on a long-term basis. So for them, what happens is they won't be able to tolerate the ADRs of phenytoin. So for them, there won't be medication adherence. So what they will do is when they feel that the ADR associated with phenytoin is becoming very intolerable, what happens is without the instruction of the doctor, they can all of a sudden stop the drug. And with the stoppage of the drug, maybe the very same day itself, the patient can experience with what? A seizure attack. Okay, that seizure attack frequency will be like quite high. So what you have to do is you have to slowly taper the dose of the drug and then you have to stop the drug. But again, if you stop the drug like that also, the patient will be having like what do you say, like again the seizure can come back. So what you have to do is you taper the dose, stop the drug, and you start with another drug. That is what usually you have to do with high priority drugs. So similarly with steroid also. So prednisolone kind of steroid. So steroid for as an anti-inflammatory agent, you use it for multiple diseases. So what happens is if you are starting with steroid and if you're stopping the steroid all of a sudden, there will be adrenocortical insufficiency. So what you have to do is instead of stopping the drug abruptly, you have to taper the dose and then you have to stop the drug. Okay, so in the beginning, imagine you were giving 8 mg. Okay, so first week you take 8 mg, second week you take 4 mg, and the third week you take 2 mg. Okay, like that you have to taper the dose of the drug. So, or else what happens is all of a sudden people will end up in some withdrawal problems. And then similarly with your sedatives and hypnotics. Okay, like if a patient was on barbiturates or benzodiazepine for sleeping. Okay, so they cannot sleep without using these kind of drugs. So they were taking these drugs, and abruptly if they are stopping the drug means they'll be having some dependence problem. Like they won't be able to sleep anymore without benzodiazepine, or associated symptoms like very severe insomnia or aggressiveness or agitation also can be seen in these type of patients. So that is type E, or end of treatment reactions. So usually it happens when you are withdrawing the drugs from the patient. So examples is benzodiazepines, it can cause rebound insomnia or agitation. Then clonidine can cause rebound hypertension. So called clonidine, it is an alpha blocker which is being specifically used for treating hypertension. Now imagine patient was on clonidine for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden you have withdrawn the drug from the patient. So what happens is then there can be a sudden rebound hypertension. Like all of a sudden when you withdraw the drug, all of a sudden the BP will shoot up. So that is rebound hypertension. And next is corticosteroids. So corticosteroids, when you are withdrawing it from the patient, it can cause acute adrenal insufficiency. Then next is type 5 reactions or failure of efficacy. Now F stands for failure. Okay, now what happens is despite giving all the medications, all the treatment, what happens is sometimes the physician or the healthcare professionals, they won't be able to achieve the expected therapeutic efficacy. Okay, so that is type F, reaction or failure of efficacy. So we expect that these drugs are supposed to give so much of therapeutic outcome, or so much of positive outcome, but unfortunately due to some underlying features or factors, that expected therapeutic efficacy is not being reached. So that is type F type of reactions. So if there is any counterfeit medicines, like if medicines that counteract with each other's action, so that are counterfeit medicines, then underdosing of medications, then drug interactions. So these are the common causes for type F type of ADR reactions. So next is in your textbook Parthasarathi, so in detail description about your type A and type B ADRs are being given. So first we will see the mechanisms behind type A ADRs. So type A stands for augmented type of adverse drug reactions, and type B stands for bizarre adverse drug reactions. So type A, I have said in the initial few slides, I have said that it is due to it is augmented, it is dose dependent, or it is predictable in nature, or it is it can be an extension of your pharmacological reaction. You can relate this ADR with the pharmacological reaction of the drug, or sometimes it is like dose dependent. When there is a slight elevation in the dose, or when the blood serum of the drug increases, there can be an ADR in this patient, or simply you can say it is predictable in nature. But bizarre is it is unpredictable. Maybe it was not reported previously, like this drug can cause this type of ADR. It was not reported previously, and it is not related to the adverse, pharmacological reaction of the drug also. So it is some kind of weird type of ADR. So hence name bizarre. Okay, so one example which I can say is Stevens-Johnson syndrome. So it was not previously reported, or there is not much evidence behind the thing that diclofenac or azithromycin and all can cause Stevens-Johnson syndrome. So doctors also won't take necessary precautions when giving these drugs also. Obviously, we have to ask whether they have any allergic reaction to the drug. So if they say a no for the question, definitely you will give the drug to them. But sometimes what happens is there can be a precipitation of Stevens-Johnson syndrome, and we don't know exactly what is the reason behind the precipitation of Stevens-Johnson's. Okay, so such kind of things you can classify under bizarre type of reaction. And the other one is type A ADR reaction, which is augmented, which is usually an extrapolation of your pharmacological action of your drug, and it is usually dose dependent, and it is usually predictable in nature. So we'll just see what are the causes of the type A ADRs. So first one is pharmaceutical causes. So pharmaceutical causes which may be attributed to the occurrence of a type A ADR include changes in the drug quantity present in a particular product and changes in its drug release properties. Okay, so now there are certain causes behind this type A ADRs. So first one you can relate to pharmaceutical causes. Okay, so pharmaceutical causes, you know that, for example, let's say a tablet. So you would have prepared tablet in during your formulation practicals. So while preparing the tablet, you would have seen there are many excipients you are using along with the drug constituent. So it is a tablet. When you prepared paracetamol tablet, it is not just the paracetamol drug you are using in the tablet. So along with the paracetamol preparation, along with the drug constituent, we have multiple number of excipients also. So sometimes what happens is, if this excipient which you are using is polluted with something, okay, it is adulterated or it is not pure in nature, it can precipitate some kind of reaction in the patient who is taking the product. Sometimes what happens is, the drug quantity present in that particular batch of product will be inappropriate. So if I say that, let's say a high priority drug, okay, now let's say theophylline. Okay, so theophylline tablets, I want it in the dose of 0.1 mg. Okay, so instead of 0.1 mg, a particular manufacturer, for a set of batch for a set of products in a particular batch or lot, what they have done is, instead of 0.1 mg, they have taken 1 mg of the theophylline drug. Okay, now you can see the huge difference between 0.1 and 1 mg. And you know that theophylline, it is a narrow therapeutic drug. That is, you have to use this theophylline in a very cautious way. Okay, it is not a safe drug. It has a very narrow therapeutic index. It means that even a slightest increase in the serum level can cause ADR or drug toxicity. So it is some drug which you have to use very cautiously in a patient. Now you can see here that, so a particular manufacturer in a particular batch of the product, instead of using 0.1 mg, they have taken 1 mg of theophylline and then they are marketing it as 0.1 mg of theophylline. Now patients or doctors, without knowing the fact that it is 1 mg, they prescribe it to the patient and the patient would end up in what? Some kind of drug toxicity. Okay, so this is one of the pharmaceutical causes that can cause ADR in patients. So changes in the drug quantity present in a particular product and changes in its drug release properties. Now imagine similarly, okay, now you have different type of drug releasing dosage forms. You have immediate release, you have extended release, or you can controlled release. Now imagine manufacturer again, he is manufacturing a product that is supposed to be extended release tablet. Okay, so a particular amount of dose will be released from the tablet using a long period of time. Okay, now let's say that the drug, it takes some 5 hours, it takes some 6 hours for releasing some 100 or 25 mg of tablet. Okay, 5 hours and not 25 will be too much, 5 mg. Okay, so you have a extended release capsule or tablet. So this particular thing is 5 mg and it takes some 6 hours to get released into the bloodstream. Okay, that is what we are expecting. Okay, because it is a high, it is a narrow therapeutic index drug. So that means there shouldn't be a huge concentration of the drug in the bloodstream. So in order to avoid the toxicity, now the manufacturer have planned that, okay, we will do one thing. We'll make a dosage form which will be releasing the drug into the bloodstream by taking 6 hours. Okay, so 5 mg, it is taking 6 hours for getting released in the bloodstream. Now, due to some manufacturing problem, instead of releasing this 5 mg by taking 6 hours, now this capsule is being produced in such a way that 5 mg is being released using within 1 hour. Now you can see the difference. It was supposed to get released using 5 hours. Now here, instead of 5 hours, it is like 1 hour they are taking. So all of a sudden, a huge amount of drug is being released into the bloodstream, which can cause what? Drug toxicity. Okay, so pharmaceutical causes, usually you can relate to the manufacturing problems. So any of these manufacturing problems, if it occurs, it can release in augmented ADRs. Okay, so first one, augmented, as I said, it is dose related. So you can see that if the quantity of drug in the dosage form is quite high, higher than the expected one, means it can cause drug toxicity. Second one is changes in the drug release properties. Now we are expecting a drug dosage form to be extended release. But due to some manufacturing trouble or issues, instead of getting an extended release, we are receiving an immediate release tablet. Okay, so a huge amount of drug, it will be getting released into the bloodstream all of a sudden. So that can again cause drug toxicity. Okay, so that is about pharmaceutical causes. So are you able to follow me? Are you listening?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So did you understand about the pharmaceutical cause? Should I explain once again?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now next is there is an example for your pharmaceutical causes. So that is griseofulvin. So griseofulvin is nothing but an antifungal. Okay, so usually most of the antifungal it should be used very carefully. Amphotericin B, griseofulvin, because the areas associated with griseofulvin and amphotericin, it is like quite high. Incidence associated with these things are very high. So they should be usually used very cautiously. So griseofulvin has widely different particle size in the final dosage form. So by switching patients stabilized on the brand with bigger particle size to the brand with smaller particle size, the peak concentration of griseofulvin increased dramatically, leading to toxicity. Okay, now griseofulvin, that particular drug, it exists in different particle size. It can exist as a large particle sized or it can exist as smaller particle size. So it varies according to some dosage form. So imagine we have a dosage form A and we have a dosage form B. So in A, the particle size of griseofulvin is very large, whereas in our B, the particle size of griseofulvin is small. Okay, now imagine our patient. So our patient was initially using the bigger particle sized brand. Okay, so he was using our dosage A, where the particle size is quite big. So he was normal. He was stabilized on that particular dosage form. But all of a sudden, what you have done is you just changed the dosage form. Okay, so from dosage form A, you have shifted the patient to dosage form B, and B has particle size which is smaller in nature. Okay, now what happens is the patient won't be able to withstand that stage, and this will lead to what? Drug toxicity. So if you are using a smaller size, I mean a particle size which with a smaller size, what happens is all of a sudden a peak concentration will be reached. Okay, unlike the particle size with a bigger size. So unlike the smaller particles can reach the peak concentration at a faster rate. So our patient will be ending up in what? A toxicity. Then next is another example for formulation factor being an important factor for the risk of development of ADR is doxycycline. Okay, so doxycycline, usually previously, long back, so how they had marketed this doxycycline was as a salt of HCl. Okay, so maybe as a salt of doxycycline chloride it was. Doxycycline hydrochloride, it was as a salt of hydrochloric acid, it was marketed. Okay, now it was found that whichever brand was having a salt, HCl salt form of the doxycycline, so they were associated with increased frequency of esophageal stricture and ulcers in patients who are lying down or who are not taking medicine with sufficient amount of water. Okay, please don't mind the spelling mistake. I was typing it really fast. So doxycycline, previously it was manufactured as a salt of hydrochloric acid. So it was found that this particular form of doxycycline as a salt form of hydrochloric acid, it was associated with high frequency of esophageal stricture and ulcers. In which type of patient? Patient who are usually bedridden and people who are not taking sufficient amount of water with this particular doxycycline hydrochloride. Okay, so later when they found this particular issue with doxycycline, they later concluded that this hydrochloride part of this doxycycline is the one that is causing some kind of corrosiveness or ulcers in the people. So they just change it to a better formulation. Okay, so usually, so one example which I'm trying to talk about is about doxycycline. So doxycycline in the past, they manufactured it in the form of hydrochloric acid salt form. So when this particular salt form was used in patient, it was especially in bedridden patient, the incidence of esophageal stricture as well as stomach ulcers, it is a hydrochloride, right? So it will cause the pH more acidic. So if the pH is becoming more acidic in nature, means obviously the patient will end up in what? Gastric ulcers. Okay, so in especially in bedridden patient and people who are not taking sufficient amount of water with this drug, it was found that the incidence of this esophageal stricture and this stomach ulcers were very common in them. So the researchers as well as the manufacturers identified the problem, and then they stopped using this particular formulation. So instead they started using a better resin form of this doxycycline, because hydrochloric acid was found to have some corrosive effect in your gastric lining. So finally they avoided the hydrochloric salt form of the doxycycline and they started using the resin form of this doxycycline. So next is the pharmacokinetic causes. So this is nothing new to you. So when you started with your pharmacology in your second year, you would have studied the pharmacokinetic causes, or how exactly the pharmacokinetic factors can affect your drug level in the body. So alteration in absorption, distribution, metabolism, and elimination of drugs may alter drug effects by changing the concentration of drug present at the site of action. Now, every drug has its own absorption ADME factors. So, if any variation occurs with these ADME factors, what happens is the amount of drug that is present in the receptor site also will be varying. Now, we will see one by one. So, first is regarding the absorption. So, alteration in rate and extent of drug absorption may result in adverse drug effects. Okay, so if there is any alteration in the rate and extension of drug absorption, like imagine if the drug is getting absorbed in a very faster rate. So in the bloodstream, there will be plenty of drug amount in the bloodstream will be very high. So that can result in toxicity. So every drug will have its own pace. Okay, so for paracetamol, if the absorption rate match, it is 5 hours. Now, instead of taking 5 hours, if within 2 hours absorption is happening, means the amount of the drug in the bloodstream also will be shooting up. So that can result in what? Drug toxicity. The plasma concentration of the drug is partly determined by the rate at which the drug is absorbed after ingestion or injection. Okay, so again, the plasma concentration of the drug will depend on what the route of administration. So whether it is injection or ingestion. So ingestion is nothing but orally you are taking, and injection means directly to the blood vessel or directly into the bloodstream you are introducing the drug. So you can see that. So within a short period of time, a huge amount of drug is flowing into the bloodstream. Okay, so absorption is quite high with your injection. So imagine maybe for oral thing, you are giving a 5 mg of a certain drug. The same drug sometimes you cannot give it to a patient in an IV form also, the same dose. Okay, because if it is given in the same dose, sometimes the patient can end up in drug toxicity, because especially if they are a high priority drug. So the route of administration also has to be taken care when you are administrating the drugs. Then the plasma concentration of an orally administered drug in turn depends greatly on the gastric emptying rate. The extent of drug absorption, that is total amount of drug in circulation, plays an important role in altered response. Okay, now the plasma concentration of orally administered, it usually depends upon the gastric emptying rate. Okay, so gastric emptying rate, you know that it's a time taken for the gastric content to leave the stomach and to reach what? The intestine. Okay, now certain drug, what happens is certain drug, its absorption, it will take place only in what? In the intestine. Okay, so if you have a drug A, so drug A, for it to get absorbed, it needs to reach where? Your intestine. Now you imagine you have taken a certain drug which reduces this gastric emptying time. Okay, so emptying means there should be a huge peristaltic movement. Okay, so there are certain drugs which will be reducing this peristaltic movement. So let's say that some antispasmodic drugs like dicyclomine. Okay, now you know that dicyclomine, it is an antispasmodic drug, or it will just reduce the movement of your GI tract. Now you imagine you have taken such kind of spasmodic drug, and then you have taken certain drug which has to be absorbed from your intestine. So since you have taken a drug that will decrease the peristaltic movement of your stomach, this drug also will be taking a huge amount of time to reach the intestine. So what happens? So since it is not reaching the intestine, the absorption of the drug also won't happen, and ultimately you won't get the therapeutic efficacy. Okay, so that is why I'm saying that the absorption of certain drugs, it actually depend upon the gastric emptying time. Now, just imagine the opposite thing. Okay, now again, imagine someone had taken a laxative. So laxative, you know that it will be increasing the peristaltic movement or gastric movement. Okay, so when someone has taken the laxative, again the drug requires its own time to get absorbed into the mucosal membrane of your GI tract. Now, if someone has taken some laxative, means the stomach lining won't get enough time to absorb this drug. Okay, before everything is getting absorbed, the entire gastric content will be removed from the body. Okay, like through stools, it will be removed out. Okay, so there won't be any proper time for absorption of the drug. So even if it is decreasing or even if it is increasing also, it will be affecting the drug. So everything should be in a moderate way. I hope you are getting my point. Is there any confusion? Are you able to follow me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So did you understand this exam which I have quoted regarding the gastric emptying time? Someone just tell me, no, you didn't understand?
Understood, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So next is regarding the distribution. So these basic things, no, I think it is mentioned in your pharmacology textbooks and all. So in a very detailed way, all the, I mean, examples, everything is being given in the textbook. You can just go through it once. So next is distribution. So factors influencing distributions are regional blood flow, then membrane permeability, then protein or tissue binding. Now, you know that change in drug distribution may predispose to ADR. So you know that proteins are really, really important. Okay, so now when you are taking a drug, like some drugs will be binding to your tissues and some will be binding to the proteins, so that you don't have a huge amount of free form of the drug in the bloodstream. Okay, so now, so this bound form, so bound, for example, albumin. So some drugs will be like binding to the albumin. Okay, some will be binding to certain other tissues. Okay, so this bound form of the drug, they are usually inactive. Okay, whereas the free form of the drug, which is not binding to any albumin or tissue, they are actually very active in nature. Now, some drugs, if when you are administering certain drugs, and if it is not binding to any proteins or any tissues, means the free form of the drug in the bloodstream will be quite high. So that can result in what? Drug toxicity. So one example which I can say is regarding the warfarin. So warfarin, then phenytoin, all these are like highly protein binding drugs. Now imagine you have a patient who has liver problems. So you know liver is the main organ which would be producing or synthesizing all these albumin proteins and all. Or imagine now someone is malnourished. So malnourished patient, again the amount of protein in their body also will be comparatively less. Now in this patient you are giving certain drugs which are highly protein bound in nature. For example, warfarin, phenytoin and all. But poor people, they don't have enough protein in their body. So without taking into consideration that particular factor that they have a poor liver that is not producing sufficient amount of protein, or the fact that the patients are that patient is malnourished, without considering any of the factors, if you're prescribing certain drugs which are highly protein bound, means all of a sudden what happens is when you administer the drug, only the free form of the drug will be existing in the bloodstream. Okay, so the drug won't be having any protein to bound to. So what happens is there will be plenty of free form of the drug in the bloodstream, and that can result in what? Drug toxicity. So it is very important that you have to know about the pharmacokinetics of the drug. So when you are prescribing a certain drug to the patient, so you should be knowing the pharmacokinetics. So if you are doing, if you are planning to give a drug which is highly protein bound, then you should consider the other factors. So warfarin. So you are seeing that okay, warfarin is highly protein bound. Then you have to either ask the patient whether they are suffering from any liver disorders or not. Or what you have to do is you have to conduct the lab investigation test. For example, you have to conduct a liver function test. Then you will get to know if bilirubin or any other enzymes are elevated. Means you'll get to know that, okay, the patient, he is having some hepatic related problems. So I should be using this particular drug very cautiously in him. Like what you can do is you can reduce the dose to the patient. Okay, so you can for a certain extent you can just resolve the issue. Okay, so these all factors you have to keep in mind when you are prescribing a certain set of drugs to the patient. So did you understand what is the relationship between protein or tissue binding with the drug?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so next is regarding the metabolism. So metabolism, so in individual with reduced metabolic rate, accumulation of drug in the body may occur and it can result in increased risk of ADR. Now there are two main phenomena associated with your metabolism. So first one is enzyme induction and second one is enzyme inhibition. Now what happens is in some people like natural, so we all have microsomal, cytochrome, and enzymes. Now they are the enzymes, or they are the factors that will be helping in the metabolization of the drug. So some people, what happens is these metabolizing agents or factors, they will be weak. Okay, so they won't be in active form. So what happens is, so let's say that we are going to give a drug which should be metabolized by a CYP 450. Okay, now I have given the drug to the patient, but unfortunately his CYP 450 enzymes, it is not being produced properly in sufficient amount, or they are inactive in nature. So what happens? So without knowing the fact that the CYP 450 is inactive, or he doesn't have sufficient amount of this enzyme, I'm giving the drug to him. So there is no one to metabolize this drug. So what happens? The drug will persist in the bloodstream, and this can result in drug toxicity or drug accumulation. Okay, so we have to also take into consideration the metabolic rate of the drugs in the patient. Now, if metabolism of the drug is happening very slowly, means obviously there can be drug toxicity or drug accumulation. Sometimes what happens is this the action of these enzymes, it will be influenced by whom? Some other drugs. Okay, so we have drugs can be drug inducers or drug inducers or drug inhibitors. Now if we are giving some drugs, what they will do is they'll just inhibit your CYP enzymes. So when they inhibit CYP enzyme, means CYP enzyme won't any longer, it won't function, and all the drug will be getting accumulated in the body. Okay, so one main reason for ADR can also be the drug interaction, especially when it comes to the metabolism. So we have enzyme inducers, we have enzyme inhibitors. So if enzyme inhibitors are present, means they'll just inhibit the enzyme, and this enzyme will no longer be active. So if they are not active, means all the drugs which are supposed to be metabolized by these enzymes, they'll just accumulate in the body, and finally the person will be ending up in what? Some drug toxicity. So therapeutic failures occurs if there is increased metabolism. Okay, now opposite to your toxicity, there is something called as therapeutic failure. Okay, so in therapeutic failure, what happens is if you're giving a drug inducer, enzyme inducer. So enzyme inducer is nothing but it will just increase the activity of your enzymes. Okay, now for example, your ranitidine, cimetidine, and all, they are some kind of enzyme inducers. So what they will do is they just activate your enzyme, your phenobarbital, then the chemicals, the hydrocarbons that is present in cigarette smoking. So they are all enzyme inducers. So what they will do is they'll just increase the activity of your microsomal enzyme. So the microsomal enzymes will be so very active that it will just degrade or metabolize your drugs in a faster rate. Okay, and if that is the condition, means there won't be any sufficient amount of dose drug in the bloodstream, and the patient will end up in what? Therapeutic failure. So these changes are due to inter-individual variation in drug metabolization. Then next is elimination. So elimination, main route of administration, elimination is not administration. Main route of elimination is kidneys and liver. So if it is through kidney means it will be excreted through urine, and in the liver means the liver will be converting the what do you say, this drug into safe metabolites, and then these metabolites will be excreted through the kidneys. Okay, so your liver. So liver, what it does is it will just convert your drug into a non-toxic form or soluble form. Okay, then this metabolites or byproducts will be then excreted through urine. So drug accumulation due to reduced elimination may predispose to ADAs as a result of increased plasma concentration, plasma and tissue. So now if elimination is not happening properly, like imagine now the patient is suffering from kidney disorder. Okay, like some chronic kidney failure he has, and you are giving the patient amikacin. So amikacin is a particular drug which is being which should be excreted as unchanged by your kidney. Okay, now without identifying the factor that the patient has a kidney failure, and despite that if you are giving amikacin, what happens is elimination won't happen properly because your kidney is not working properly. So obviously the elimination also won't be happening in a desired way, and all this amikacin will be getting accumulated in the body. Okay, and that will result in what? Amikacin toxicity. So patient can end up in again a nephrotoxicity, or he can even suffer from autotoxicity. Then reduced concentration of drug in plasma and tissue due to enhanced elimination can result in therapeutic failure. Now opposite to that, what happens is, now first in here we were talking about elimination if it is in a reduced way. Now sometimes what happens is elimination can be also in a faster rate. Okay, so if elimination of a drug is happening in a very faster rate means what happens is there will be therapeutic failure. For example, caffeine. Okay, so caffeine, you know that it will be inducing what? Diuresis. Now what happens is some drugs, when it reaches your renal tubules, they will be reabsorbed back. Okay, so even that is also required. So now what happens is when you are taking certain drugs along with caffeine, which is actually a diuretic agent, it can increase the diuresis, right? So what happens is when someone is taking caffeine or such kind of agents, what happens is the urine flow or the urine output will be quite high. Okay, so when the urinary flow rate is very high means this reabsorption won't take place. So the drug will be eliminated in a faster rate. They are not getting reabsorbed, and thereby there can be a therapeutic failure. So that is about elimination factor. Next is pharmacodynamic factors or causes. So increased sensitivity of target tissues or organs may predispose a person to ADAs. Now you know that pharmacodynamic factors, it is all usually related to the drug receptors. Okay, now if anything is wrong with going wrong with the receptors, that will be affecting the pharmacodynamics. Now what happens is sometimes the target tissues or receptors, sometimes they can be very sensitive. Okay, so very sensitive, if the receptors are really sensitive means that can result in ADAs. So drug receptors, first we'll talk about the drug receptors. So drugs elicit the response by combining with receptors. These receptors are either protein or enzyme. So whenever a drug reaches the bloodstream, they'll go and bind to the particular receptors. So now this receptor can be a cell or it can be a protein or an enzyme, and then the resulting drug response will be elicited. Now the amount and sensitivity of receptors of one individual may differ from those of another individual. Now the sensitivity of receptors won't be the same for everyone. Some individuals have fewer specific drug and specific drug receptors, whereas others may have a higher number of less active receptors. Okay, so again the receptors or properties of the drug receptors present in different individuals, they can vary. Some will be having a lesser active form of the receptors, and some will be having fewer higher number of less active receptors. So some will be having fewer specific drug receptors. Okay, that is actually a problem. Now if they are having receptors which are less active in nature means what happens? The receptors won't respond properly to the drug. And if they are having fewer specific drug receptors means what? We require a specific drug receptor, then only the drug can go and bind to the receptors. Or else what happens if the drug won't know to whom it should go and bind? So it will just remain in the bloodstream itself. So we won't be getting a therapeutic efficacy, or therapeutic effect won't be received. Next is homeostatic mechanism. So physiological factors may determine the extent of drug's effect in an individual, as drug effect occur within the environment of the body's physiological mechanism. Now, IV atropine produces a variable increase in heart rate and some individuals develop tachycardia of 160 beats per minute. Okay, now sometimes what happens is the way someone's body is, it can even affect the drug effect. Like the homeostatic mechanism can affect the response that is being given by the drug. So sometimes what happens, like every one of us is not made in the same way. There will be some variations in like there will be inter-individual variation. So now, for example, which I can quote is your atropine. So in atropine, in some people, when it is given, it will be absolutely normal. But in some people, if it is given in the very normal dose also, the person can end up in what? Very high tachycardia, or the heart rate can go more than 160 beats per minute. Okay, so even your homeostasis of your body also has an important role in precipitating areas. Okay, most of the time it will be having an unknown reason. The reason won't be like evident, or you won't know what exactly is the reason. Due to some unknown factors, the way each individual's body will be responding to the drug also can vary. So atropine in some people, it will be absolutely normal. So in some others, it can precipitate tachycardia. Now the other factor which can induce ADR is concurrent diseases. So pharmacological effect of a drug which are not apparent in a healthy individual may be unmasked by intercurrent diseases. Okay, now someone will be absolutely normal, but if they have a disease, and in this disease stage, if you are giving a certain drug, means they'll end up in ADRs. So one example I can say is regarding the asthmatic patients. So asthmatic patient, you know that the main problem with them is severe bronchoconstriction. So you are giving an asthmatic patient a non-selective beta blockers. So you know that in the bronchioles or in the lining of the lungs, they have plenty of what? Beta 2 receptors. Okay, so if you are giving non-selective beta blockers, okay, like non-selective means they cannot distinguish between beta 1 or beta 2. So beta 1 is the one that is present in the heart, and beta 2 is the one that is present in your respiratory system. So usually you give bronchodilators. So usually the bronchodilators will be acting on your beta 2 receptors. So when they act on beta 2 receptors, the dilation of your bronchol, they are beta agonist ones. So what happens is there will be dilation of your bronchioles or your respiratory system. Whatever constriction was there, it will be removed by the bronchodilators. Now, despite that, if you are giving certain non-selective beta blockers, okay, so the one which cannot distinguish between beta 1 or beta 2, like propranolol and all. So if we are giving propranolol to this asthmatic patient, means it will be precipitating bronchoconstriction in these kind of patients. So sometimes it can be very fatal also. And similarly, even aspirin also shouldn't be given to asthmatic patients. So again, there can be a counter-effective, some counter effects will be there, and the patient can end up in bronchoconstriction, severe bronchoconstriction. So they will be stabilized initially, but when you give this kind of non-selective beta blockers or aspirin and all to this patient, what happens is there will be a precipitation of asthma. So especially if you give aspirin to these patients, means there will be increased production of leukotrienes. So when these leukotrienes, so like all the, I hope you remember the arachidonic acid pathway. So you know that prostaglandins, leukotrienes, everything will be produced. So this aspirin, they go and inhibit whom? The COX pathway. Okay, so all these things will be, all this arachidonic acid, when this COX pathway is getting blocked, so there will be two pathways. So from the arachidonic acid, prostaglandins can be made, and then leukotrienes can be made. Okay, so when you are giving certain NSAIDs or aspirin or anything, this COX pathway will be blocked. Okay, when the COX pathway is getting blocked, all this arachidonic acid will be entering into what? The leukotriene pathway. And then like large amount of leukotrienes will be produced. And this leukotriene will produce what? Bronchoconstriction. So it has been said that aspirin or NSAID shouldn't be given to asthmatic patients. So they'll be in a stabilized form, but due to an introduction of a drug, they'll end up in these kind of areas. Okay, so that is why due to the presence of a disease, a patient is having ADAs. Now, someone without an asthma, in them, if you are giving NSAID or non-selective beta blockers, means he will be absolutely normal. But if person with asthma, if you are giving non-selective beta blockers or NSAID or aspirin, means he will end up in breathing problem or bronchoconstriction. So due to the presence of a disease, he is ending up in ADAs. Okay, without the disease, there won't be any ADA, but due to the disease, he is ending up in a ADA. So that is about disease factors. So I hope I am clear with the class. So did you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
hold on. Siddharth, have you taken